Welcome back to the channel, guys. We got some parts in yesterday. We got all the parts to build the 4-link rear suspension on the Mule Jeep. These parts took a little bit longer to get here than I thought, but I'm really excited to get started on this project. I wanted to kind of go through what parts I got, where I got them from, just so you can get an idea, because I tried to do this the most budget-friendly way I could. Let's start out with the truss. This is from Rough Stuff. It's kind of like their universal, they call it their heavy duty truss, which works for the Sterling 10.5 or 14 bolt. And that fits up in there really nice. It's not some big crazy hole width axle truss, because I don't need that. I just need somewhere to mount my upper links. And then, same from Rough Stuff, I got the 4-link tube kit, and this is 2-inch by quarter wall DOM tubing. I could have sourced it through locally, but by the time I hooked a trailer up, drove there, bought a full stick, cut it up, the cost to buy them already just pre-cut at 4 feet and shipped to my house was actually cheaper than if I was going to buy it locally from the steel manufacturer. And then I got the 4-link bracket kit from Barnes. I got it with all 1.25" Heim joints with 9/16 bolt spacers. Some people like to go with the bigger bolts, but really for a 9/16 is plenty on this. This isn't going to be a crazy heavy rig that's getting jumped non-stop. And that came with everything from all the lower brackets, and all this stuff from Barnes looks really high quality. I'm really happy with all the bracketry. Everything's cut out and bent really nice. So we're going to get going on this part of the project, and I'm really excited. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let's get going on building this rear 4-link. So one more thing, there's so many different ways to build things with trucks and cars, and the way people fabricate and do things. This is the way that I do it. Some people do it different and think it's right or wrong the other way, but there's so many different ways to do things. So don't take everything I do here as this is the only way to do it. This is just the way that I do it that works for me. Let's go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort out these Heim joints, because half of them are right-handed threads and half of them are left-handed threads. And on these 4-link tubes, you want a left-handed thread on one and a right-handed thread on the other. So you can turn the tube to adjust the link in and out, because I have made the mistake where I welded 2 left-handed threads onto the same 4-link bar, and then you hate yourself, because then you got to take the bolt out and you got to spin these joints by hand and then put it back in, put the bolt in to adjust your suspension. It's not fun. So you want to make sure you get it right and you get them marked and that sort. So like this one here, that's a standard lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So that's going to get labeled right-handed thread. Let's see if we can find. Yep, see, and then this one is a lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. So this one is a left-handed thread. Something really simple, but if you mix them up and you're trying to adjust your suspension later, you're not going to be a happy camper. So as I was going through marking these, my other Heim joints that I have on here don't have it, but for these ones, the left-handed threads have the little mark on the nut to verify. I'm still going to go around and mark them left-handed and right-handed, compared to standard one doesn't have that. So that's another way they were thinking ahead too and marked them. So now that I got all these Heim joints marked for lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, and lefty-tighty, righty-loosey, it's kind of tongue twister saying that. Next thing I like to do is I like to set the bungs that go into the tube now. So you want to be able to have adjustment in and out. You don't want to set up your suspension with this spun all the way, where it's barely catching any threads out, and you don't want to set it up where it's all the way bottomed out and you can't adjust in anymore. So you want to have that nice medium. I'd like to say at least I'm going to go, it depends on the bung and it depends on the length of your threads that come with your heim joint, but I like the look of just spinning it out enough to where you can just see one thread there, because then that gives me about a 1/4 inch adjustment in, but then I can still adjust it out another 1/4 inch and still have plenty of thread contact in. So I'm gonna set all these to there and then tighten the jam nut on these. Not super tight, just enough to where they don't move. So I'm starting with the bracketry now. This is the upper link frame side, and this tab does not come pre-welded into this bracket. So I bolted the heim up in there so you make sure all the bolt holes line up. I'll tack weld this in place, take the heim joint out, and fully weld this bracket assembly together before we go and put it under the truck. It's just less welding under the truck in odd positions. This is what it looked like when it first came, you see? So you could try to measure it and put it in here, but trying to get those holes to line up without a joint being bolted in is a pain in the butt. So this is the way I found to do it that works the best. And we'll get these brackets together, tacked up, welded together, and we'll be ready to start putting them under the truck. Fits really well, this heavy duty universal one from Rough Stuff. These are not very critical. You can tilt this angle of the top wherever you would like, and for the most part it doesn't even have to be centered in the axle, because what's going to center the axle are the two joints up top. I personally like when the truss is centered just for visual purposes. So that is what I'm going to do. I'll just measure from this backing plate over on both sides, because the center diff on these 10.5s are not centered in the axle. They are offset. So I am going to center the truss, tack weld it in place, and we're going to go from there. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tack on this lower link bracket onto the axle. So with these, you can put them on like this, straight like that, or you can rotate them down, to get the link a little bit below the axle. I am probably going to be running it kind of midway, kind of right about there, and I'm going to gauge it off of making this flat level. And the reason for that is I don't want to mount it all the way up here, because then I'm going to run into clearance issues with the link in the frame, and I want to be able to bring it down a little bit also, because when you bring it down, it adds more separation between your upper and your lower links, and you want is 8. So yeah, you want about 8 inches of separation, and from what my measurements, that will give that about where that is sitting there. And then you want these lower links to be as wide on the axle as you can without it hitting the tire. So I had the tire up here mocked up with a link up here, to make sure that this would clear, and it ends up being about 2.5 inches from the back space. So I'm going to set this up here. We're going to tack this, and then we'll get a link on here and start figuring out our lengths for the frame side. Alright, so we got that lower link tacked in place with the heim joint on it. And this is the stock 4-foot length of the tubing. So I'm going to slip this on here, slip it on the bracket over here that has another heim joint in it for the frame side. And I am going to prop it up with this jack stand and stand back and look at it and see if I think that we should make them longer, or I guess I can't make them longer. We want to make them shorter or not. Because you don't always want the longest links around. This is that frame side link. About there. So I'm thinking those are a little long. Yeah, definitely too long. I am going to cut a few inches out of that, probably about 6 or 7, and then I will remock this up. So I recut the lower links down to 38 inches instead of 48. So we lost 10 inches on those. I'm already starting to like what that looks like. Jack stand to click in place correctly. Place to see it. Yeah, that looks way better. You don't want them too long, or all the pressure from your rear axle when you're going forward, starts pushing forward onto the truck way too far forward into the frame. But you don't want them too short to where you're having issues flexing out the suspension. So I like where that is. We are going to tack that in place and then work on the other side. Alright, so I'm going to tack this up. And then I am going to go over and match exactly what I did here onto the other side. I'm not going to film it because that'd be kind of redundant. So I'll tack this, I'll get that other side mocked up just like this, and then we will start on the upper links. You always want to make sure you get some good hefty tacks on these, because there's nothing worse than you tack this stuff on, you get it all set up, you go to cycle the suspension, and then you got stuff breaking off. So good tacks, make sure it's solid, and I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, so
both lower control arms are fit up. I copied the passenger side right to the driver's side, the exact same thing. I'm getting started on these upper links. I have decided to make the upper links equal length to the lower links. Some people say 75% of the lower length, some say longer than the lower links, and I chose to be equal length because when these bars are like this and they articulate like this, if they're equal length, they should keep my pinion angle as close to what it is now, which is what I like. Because if you have a shorter upper control arm or upper link bar, as that axle comes down, your pinion's going to dive because it's shorter, so it's going to rotate the axle forward. If they're longer, it's going to rotate the pinion up. If you have them equal length, it is going to rotate hopefully at the same plane that it's on to keep that driveline angle the same. So we are going to tack these Heims up, and then we are going to get them under the truck and start fitting them onto the truck. Let's go, guys. So I pre-assembled these upper links, and the reason I did that is just to verify that, and I laid it out like it was going to be in the truck, because make sure the nuts are on the inside here, because if the bolt was facing this way on these and you tack these in place like this, you'd never get that bolt out. And same with frame side. Make sure that the nuts on this side, if the bolt's facing that way, you weld this bracket in place, you'll never get that bolt to slide out because it'll be hitting the frame right there. So, gonna see if I can manhandle these up there. We got to find the center of the axle, and let's get to tacking it up on the yellow J10 Jeep. All right, so we want these upper links to be centered in the axle. The differential obviously isn't centered, but I did center this truss to the axle and not to the differential. So I'm just going to double check to make sure that it's the same distance from frame rail to frame rail. So that is 13 inches right there. So that is center. And then these links, they are, I'm going to want to just like that. So how big of a gap is that? 2.5. Inch and a quarter off each side of that center line. There, so that is where I'm going to want this edge of the link to land, and then wherever it lands up on the frame. So let's see if I can muscle one of these up there. They're kind of heavy, so I might have to reposition camera with and hang this with ratchet straps or something so I don't have jack stands that are tall enough. Alright, yep, I'm gonna have to get jack stands or ratchet straps or something to hold that up there because I can't. We'll be back in a minute. Alright, we are back. Got my handy dandy ratchet strap because I can hold it up there now. So I hope you can see, but over here, you want to get that bracket lined up straight with the Heim and right on the mark where I'm picturing. So that looks like it's lined up, and I'm going to go right to the edge right there, and that looks good there. So So I am going to tack weld that in place so we get less flopping around with this link up here. Check. Okay, so that's holding up a little bit better. And then it's for frame side. So when I've pre-mocked these up, I put the bolt in the center hole. So that gives me some adjustment down and some adjustment up to make some changes. As far as the geometry of this, I am shooting for anti-squat of 0 or 100 or a little bit below 100, I believe. So when this comes up to ride height, these should be fairly level, and that helps so it doesn't lift. The rear axle doesn't push down under acceleration. So I'm going to eyeball this, and then I will match the other side. I'm like right about there. It looks like it's about a ½ inch down from the top of the frame. We get enough separation for the upper links. Oh, and there I tripped the breaker. Let me go trip the breaker again. All right, we're back. Here we got the 4-link all fit up on this. I am going to set up the camera, and we are going to cut them scrap chunks out, and we are going to articulate this and drop it down, make sure everything looks good, and we will go from there. All right, I just wanted to point out how I cut these off for future reference. I cut off this back kicker piece, and then for these vertical ones, I just split it with my cutoff wheel, because when I'm going to be mounting shocks and stuff, I want to be able to jack this axle back up and have its stopping point for where it's level and where it's dead stop up here for full bump. So we are going to run this jack, and we are going to articulate this axle, and we will see how she flexes out and how the pinion angle does throughout the travel of the suspension. And that is as far as my jack goes down, and that looks wonderful. As you can see, the pinion angle didn't change much. It's still pointing right at the transfer case pretty much for angle. And let's jack her back up. See what we can get for the flex side to side. Oh, it's heavy. And this is another reason you want to make sure you got good strong tack welds, because you don't want one of these tacks breaking while you're doing some testing. Okay. And I like that. So let's try jacking it back up in place. Make sure it hits the bump stops from where I cut. Well, perfect. Perfect. There you have it, guys. There is the 4-link fit up for the J10 Mule Jeep. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And you can see when I jacked it back up, it was right under them bump stops, so I know right where, catch my breath, right where full stuff is for the tires, or at full bump, I guess is the better terminology. And that's awesome. So, all right, so we got all this fit up, all this done. Please like and subscribe. Follow Mule Fabrication, because we are building the Mule Jeep. For next video, I got on order 4 14-inch ORI struts for this thing. So the next video, we are going to be building shock hoops, putting the struts on, and then later we will be doing the tuning for all these struts. I've had a lot of experience with these ORIs on the Hero Jeep, and they perform awesome. So we will see you next time. Awesome. Thank you for watching. Talk to you later, guys.